I thought I was just helping my aunt's neighbor. I didn't expect her to change everything. I didn't plan on being here long. My aunt asked me to spend a few days at her place, just to help with a few things around the house. I'm 24. Apparently the perfect age to lift heavy furniture and fix squeaky doors. I wasn't expecting much. Maybe some home-cooked meals and a quiet weekend. But plans change fast when someone unexpected walks into your day. It was late morning when I first saw her, my aunt's neighbor. Her name, I'd later learn, was Elena. She was parked in the driveway next door, the trunk of her car open, and she was trying to lift a large box that clearly weighed more than she was letting on. She wasn't small or fragile. She carried herself with a kind of natural strength, but there was a tiredness in her shoulders, like life had been heavy for a while now. I stepped closer without really thinking. "Hey, do you need a hand?" She looked up, and for a moment, I forgot how to speak. Warm brown eyes, sunlit hair tied in a loose knot, a soft flush on her cheeks from the effort. She looked around her early 40s, but what caught me wasn't her age. It was the grace she had, the way she tried to handle everything alone. "Oh yes, please, if you don't mind," she said, letting out a breath she'd been holding. I grabbed the box, heavier than it looked, and our fingers brushed. Just a tiny touch, but enough for a strange little jolt to run up my arm. I pretended nothing happened. She probably didn't even notice. "Thank you," she added, her smile small but genuine, like kindness wasn't something she received often anymore. As I followed her toward the house, I noticed little details, the faint lavender scent from her hair, the curve of her silhouette in casual jeans and a soft gray sweater. She walked ahead of me, but occasionally she turned to make sure I was okay carrying the box. Each time our eyes met, there was something warm and curious. Inside, her living room felt like a place meant to be lived in. Soft colors, books stacked in corners, sunlight spilling across wooden floors. A comfortable kind of chaos. Suited her. "You're my neighbor's nephew, right?" she asked, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Yeah, Daniel," I said, "just here for a couple of days." "Well, Daniel, you've already saved me from a disaster," she teased lightly. I laughed a little too quickly. Why was my heart reacting like this? She was just being polite. But when she rested her hand briefly on my arm, just a simple thank you gesture, my pulse jumped like she whispered something intimate. She pulled away slowly, unaware of the effect she had. I walked back to my aunt's place after helping her with a few more things, trying to act normal. But the truth? I couldn't stop thinking about her smile, or that lavender scent, or the quiet strength in her eyes. It was just one favor, a small moment, and yet, it felt like the start of something I wasn't ready to admit. Not yet. I didn't expect to see her again so soon. I had barely stepped into my aunt's living room when I heard a soft voice call after me. "Daniel, would you like to stay for a quick iced coffee? Just as a thank you." She stood near the doorway, hands gently clasped, like she wasn't sure whether she was asking too much. There was a hopeful, nervous softness in her eyes, and I couldn't have said no even if I tried. "Yeah." I smiled. "Coffee sounds great." Inside her kitchen, the afternoon sun spilled through wide windows, catching flecks of gold in her hair as she moved. She filled 2 tall glasses with ice, then poured coffee slowly, like she wanted the moment to last. "I'm still unpacking," she explained with an embarrassed laugh, nodding toward the scattered boxes. "It's been chaotic." "Fresh start?" I asked, avoiding anything too personal. "MMH." She nodded. "Something like that." She didn't say the word divorced yet, but the quiet ache in her pause said enough. We carried the glasses to her living room, sitting across from each other on a sofa that looked far newer than the rest of the place. Maybe her first step toward rebuilding. She asked about my career, my goals, my hobbies. Most people my age respond with vague shrugs or half-jokes when asked about the future. But she listened like my uncertainty mattered. And that changes the way you talk. I found myself telling her things I rarely say aloud, that I feel like I'm constantly one step behind, watching everyone else figure out life faster than I can. She didn't judge. She just understood. "That's how I felt in my 20s, she said quietly. Except I pretended I didn't. She smiled. Not the bright kind from earlier, but a fragile one that made her seem real. Honest. Human. At one point, she reached forward and brushed a bit of lint from my sleeve, letting her fingers rest just a heartbeat too long. My chest tightened. I wasn't imagining it. The warmth in her touch, the way her eyes lingered on mine. She changed the subject lightly, like she realized she'd crossed some invisible line. "You're visiting your aunt for a few days, right?" she asked. "Yeah. She says she needs help fixing things. But I think she just wants company." "That's sweet," Elena said, stirring her ice slowly. "Family is important." There was a silence after that, not awkward, just aware. Like both of us were waiting to see who would acknowledge the shift. She curled one leg beneath her, comfortable or trying to be. Her knee brushed mine. Neither of us moved it away. "You know," she whispered, eyes softening, "I don't usually accept help, but today I'm glad I did." There was sincerity in her voice that shook me more than I expected. And before I could respond, she laughed, light, warm, and touched my arm again. Her fingertips were cool from the glass. My skin burned where she'd been. I left a little later, telling myself it was just friendly conversation. But every moment with her felt too meaningful to be casual. This wasn't just coffee. It was the start of a connection neither of us wanted to admit was happening. Not yet. The next morning, I found myself glancing toward her driveway more than once, telling myself it was just curiosity, nothing more. But when my aunt asked if I could help Elena with a few heavier boxes later that day, I said yes before she even finished the sentence. I tried to act casual. I probably failed. When I knocked on her door, she opened it with that same soft smile, like she was genuinely happy to see me. "You came back," she said, and only afterward seemed to realize how that sounded. A faint blush rose to her cheeks. "I mean, thank you. I really appreciate the help." "I don't mind," I replied. "Gives me something to do." But the truth? I wanted to be near her again. We spent the afternoon moving box after box, sunlight slipping through the windows, warming the dust in the air. At one point, she reached to push a box further in the hallway, and her shirt rode up just slightly, revealing a glimpse of the curve where her back met her waist. Nothing dramatic, just enough to make my throat tighten unexpectedly. I looked away quickly, but not quickly enough. She noticed. When she turned, her eyes caught mine before I could pretend I hadn't been staring. Instead of awkwardness or annoyance, something flickered across her face. Something like understanding. Or recognition. "You must think I'm a mess," she said lightly, brushing hair behind her ear. "No," I said too fast. I swallowed. "No, you're doing really well. Moving is stressful." Her smile returned. Slow, warm. Like I'd said exactly what she needed to hear. As we squeezed through the narrow hallway with a particularly wide box, her shoulder brushed my chest. Could have been nothing. An accident, a coincidence. But neither of us stepped back. We kept walking like that for a few seconds. Skin, breath, closeness, until the moment passed and the space widened again. Still, my pulse kept racing. We took a break, leaning against the wall a little out of breath. She tilted her head to look at me, eyes searching, soft and unsure. "You're very kind," she said. "Your aunt is lucky." I shrugged, trying to calm the nervous energy in my chest. "I just like helping people." "You make it sound so simple," she murmured. "Some people forget how to be gentle." There was weight in her voice, a quiet echo of whoever had stopped treating her with tenderness. I wanted to ask. I wanted to know everything, but I held back. This bond we were forming, it felt delicate, like one wrong question could break it. A moment later, she stepped a little closer. Not enough for anyone else to notice, but enough for me to feel the warmth radiating from her. She smelled like fresh laundry and a hint of lavender, the same scent that had stayed with me since yesterday. "Thank you for being here," she said softly, more vulnerable than before. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. All I could think was, is she feeling this too? Because something had changed, subtly, silently, but definitely, and I wasn't imagining any of it. By late afternoon, the house was finally looking like a home again. The sun filtered in through the kitchen windows, warm and soft, like it was approving every quiet moment we'd spent together that day. Elena turned to me with that grateful smile I was starting to crave more than I should. "You've worked so hard. At least let me feed you," she said, gesturing toward the counter where vegetables were half chopped. "I promise I'm a decent cook." Dinner. Just one word, but my heart reacted like she'd invited me into something much deeper. "I'd like that," I replied, trying not to sound too eager. She tossed ingredients into a pan, the aroma filling the room. Garlic, basil, something comforting and familiar. I leaned against the counter, watching the way she moved with ease, humming quietly to herself. She kept brushing stray hair from her cheeks, and each time I wanted to reach out and do it for her. We talked while she cooked, about the future she hoped to build in this house. She wanted brightness, peace, laughter again. The way she said it made me wonder how long she'd been without those things. Just as she set plates on the table, the lights flickered, then went out completely. She froze. "Oh no!" The storm must have hit a line. Her voice carried a hint of embarrassment, like the darkness ruined the moment. "It's okay," I said, already searching the drawers. "You have candles, right?" A minute later, soft candlelight flickered across her face, and honestly, the moment wasn't ruined. It was perfect. Shadows danced on the walls as we sat across from each other, shoulders angled just slightly closer than necessary. The silence wasn't awkward. It held something expectant, something warm that filled every inch of space the electricity used to claim. She told me about her job, her divorce, but only pieces, the parts she felt safe enough to share. I listened, not judging, just trying to understand the weight she carried every day. There was vulnerability in her voice that made me want to reach across the table and hold her hand. At one point, she leaned forward, noticing something on my face. "Hold still," she whispered. Her thumb brushed the corner of my mouth to wipe away a tiny speck of sauce. A tiny gesture, but her touch lingered. Warm, gentle, slightly shaky. The air changed. Neither of us spoke for several long seconds. We just looked at each other. Her eyes softened. Her breath hitched the tiniest bit. My heart hammered loud enough I wondered if she could hear it. "I haven't had company like this in a long time," she said finally, her voice tender, almost fragile. I swallowed. "I'm glad I'm here." She smiled, slow and real, the kind of smile that makes you promise yourself you won't ever be the one to take it away. Outside, thunder rolled. Inside, the quiet was louder. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew this wasn't just a nice dinner. This was two people finding comfort in each other and not wanting the night to end. The storm outside had settled into a quiet patter, the kind that makes the world feel smaller and softer. After dinner, we carried a few candles into the living room. The glow painted the walls gold and gave her eyes a deeper warmth, a warmth I was trying not to get lost in. We sat close, closer than earlier, a single cushion between us on the couch. Rain tapped the windows in a calm rhythm, filling the silence we were too aware of. She let out a soft breath. "It's nice not being alone in this house tonight." The way she said it tugged at me, a quiet confession wrapped in bravery. I didn't want her to feel alone. Not anymore. "You deserve company," I said, "the kind that stays." Her gaze flicked to mine, surprised, grateful, unsure. For a moment, neither of us moved. We just sat in the candlelight with all the unspoken feelings between us. She shifted slightly, her knee brushing my leg. It wasn't an accident. She didn't move away. Instead, she smoothed her fingers over her sweater, as if deciding something. "You're very easy to talk to," she said. Her tone was low, like she didn't trust her voice to say anything more. "I feel that way with you too," I replied. Her smile trembled, not from fear, but from the courage of being seen. Then, she leaned forward, just a little, enough that the space between us became fragile. I reacted before I could think, reaching gently for her hand. I rested my palm over hers, nervous but certain. Her fingers stiffened in surprise, then slowly relaxed beneath mine. Her skin was soft, slightly cold from holding her glass earlier. I wanted to warm her. I wanted to stay by her side long enough to understand every small hurt she carried. She watched our hands, voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I should be doing this." "Then tell me to stop," I said honestly. She didn't. Instead, she lifted her other hand and lightly fixed the collar of my shirt. A tiny, tender gesture, but her fingers lingered against my neck. Her touch was warm, almost hesitant, as if she wasn't sure whether she was allowed to want this. I covered her hand with mine, gently holding it there. Her breath caught, her eyes closed for a heartbeat, like the moment overwhelmed her in the best way. When she opened them again, there was no hiding anymore. Not the longing, not the fear, not the hope. "It's been so long since anyone looked at me like that," she admitted. I leaned just slightly closer, not crossing any line, only enough for her to feel the truth in my voice. "You deserve to be looked at that way." The room stayed still. The storm outside faded into a quiet hush. Time felt suspended, waiting for her decision. This wasn't a kiss. This wasn't anything reckless. It was two people holding on to a moment they weren't ready to end. A moment that meant everything, even if we both pretended to breathe normally. For a long moment, we didn't move. Her hand was still resting against my neck. My fingers curled gently around hers. The candles flickered, casting soft, wavering light over her face, revealing a vulnerability she usually kept buried beneath grace and composure. She swallowed, eyes searching mine. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Of what?" My voice barely made it out. "That this will feel real," she whispered. "And then, it won't last." Her honesty hit deeper than anything else tonight. She wasn't afraid of me. She was afraid of hoping again. I shifted closer, deliberately slow. I didn't want her to run, only to trust that I wasn't going anywhere too fast. When my knee touched hers, she didn't pull back. Instead, she released a breath she'd been holding. "I don't want to be something you look back on as a mistake," she said. "You're not a mistake," I replied. "You're the first thing that's made sense in a while." Her eyes glistened. Not tears, just emotion too big to hide. I raised my hand, resting it lightly along her jaw. She leaned into the contact like someone who'd been cold for a long time and had finally found warmth. "You make me feel," she paused, searching for the right word. "Safe." The simplicity of that confession undid me. I slipped into an embrace, slow, careful. My arms wrapped around her waist, hers circling my shoulders. Our bodies fit together naturally, like this wasn't the first time we'd held each other, but something we'd been moving toward all along. She rested her forehead against my temple, breathing me in. I felt the gentle rise and fall of her chest against mine, the steady rhythm grounding us both. Not rushed, not hidden, just real. Her fingertips traveled the back of my neck in soft, thoughtful strokes, learning me. Every touch told a story. "Thank you. Don't go. I want this too." When she pulled back, her face hovered inches from mine. She cupped my cheek with one hand, thumb brushing slowly, tenderly. "I haven't felt wanted like this," she said. "Not for who I am now." I held her gaze. "I want exactly who you are now." She closed her eyes, overcome, then wrapped her arms around me again, holding me tighter this time, like she finally allowed herself to believe me. There were no rushed decisions, no reckless leaps, just hearts aligning quietly, undoubtedly. Her head settled on my shoulder. My hand rested at the small of her back, fingers tracing slow circles that made her breathe deeper, calmer. The storm outside had stopped, but inside, something was just beginning. This wasn't desire without meaning. It was two people deciding to stop pretending they didn't feel what they felt. Wanting each other wasn't the scary part anymore. Believing they deserved this, that was where the courage lived. We stayed like that, holding each other long after the candles burned lower. The storm had passed, leaving everything outside washed clean. Inside, it felt like something inside us had been washed clean too. She eventually loosened her hold and looked at me. Really looked, as if memorizing the fact that I was still there, that I hadn't pulled away. "I don't know what happens next," she said softly. "Me neither," I admitted. "But I know I don't want to walk away from this. From you." Her breath caught in her throat, a tiny, stunned sound, and she blinked, almost like she needed a second to take that in. "I've spent so long feeling like my story was already written," she confessed, "that I had to settle for the leftover chapters." I shook my head gently. "Maybe this is where the good part starts." That made her smile. A slow, blooming smile that felt like sunrise after too many long nights. She brushed her fingers through my hair, tender and curious, like she was relearning the feeling of wanting someone this close. We moved out to the porch where the air was cool and smelled like rain. Crisp, clean, new. The wooden swing creaked quietly as we sat down, shoulders pressed together, our hands finding each other without hesitation this time. The neighborhood was silent, the kind of silence that feels like a blessing. "My neighbor will definitely notice you haven't come back to your aunt's yet," she said with a playful nudge. "Then I'll just tell her the truth," I replied. "I got distracted." She laughed under her breath, leaning her head against my shoulder as if it belonged there. "I can't believe this is happening," she murmured. "I didn't think I'd ever feel something like this again." I turned slightly so I could see her better. "You deserve to feel wanted, seen, appreciated, every single day." Her fingers tightened around mine. A small squeeze, but full of meaning. "I don't care if we take this slow," I added. "I don't care what anyone else thinks. I just want to be someone who adds to your life, not someone who makes you worry." She took a deep breath, letting it out in a trembling sigh, not of fear, but relief. "Then we go slow," she said. "But we go together." I nodded once, certain. We leaned into each other, letting the porch swing rock us gently. The future wasn't mapped out, but for the first time in a long time, neither of us felt lost. There, in the soft glow of the porch light, she traced her thumb along my hand. A quiet promise nestled in a simple gesture. I kissed the top of her head, just a soft brush of lips against her hair, and she closed her eyes, smiling. The connection we tried to pretend was just kindness? It wasn't small. It wasn't fleeting. It was real. It was happening. And it was ours. Whatever tomorrow looked like, we'd step into it side by side. If you enjoyed this emotional age gap love story, please like the video. It truly helps the channel grow. Share your thoughts in the comments.